Okay, welcome once again to another of my tutorial as I'm about to show you on how to cut your wrap dress. So how to cut your wrap dress was requested from one of my subscriber. I really appreciate you guys for your support. So I want to do this because I have a wrap dress which I was able to decide for my client because she told me to give her style. So because of my request, which is very requested, I decided to sew a wrap dress for her. So this is a wrap dress which I want to sew now. Okay, so after getting your fabric unfold, so here is my fabric unfold, and how I was able to get my fabric unfold was my hip. I used my hip measurement because my hip is the largest part of my body. Because I want to make a dress, my hip is bigger than my bust. So for what I'm making at my hip divided by 4 plus 1.5 inch for sewing allowance. That is what I have here right now. My hip divided by 4 plus 1.5 inch for sewing allowance. This is because of the fabric I am working with. If you are working with an Ankara fabric, what you are going to do is your hip divided by 4 plus 2 inches of sewing allowance. For this fabric which I'm working with, I'm not going to use lining for it. So it is plus 1.5 inch for sewing allowance. That's what I have here. And my full length of my dress which I want to make now. So when you want to make something like a wrap, anything that you want to do that deals with wrap, you are going to get your body measurement in 3 places. Your body measurement which you have for your front, you are going to cut your front 2 using your front body measurement and cut your back 1. So let me go ahead to do that to explain better for you to understand. So what I'm going to do now is to get the full length of my dress, and the full length of my dress is 34. So I am going to plus 1 inch for sewing allowance because I am going to use bias for this. 1 inch for sewing allowance because I'm going to use 0.5 inch for my shoulder and 0.5 inch for the bias that I'm going to use at this down part. So I have 1 inch for sewing allowance, making it 35. So here I have my 35. Here I have my 35. 34 plus 1 inch for sewing allowance for my full length. So here I have 35. And I connect it like this. So after getting my 35 for my measurement, what I'm going to do now is to get my shoulder to bust measurement. My shoulder to bust measurement is 10. My shoulder to bust measurement is 10 because of my sewing allowance at my shoulder. Because of my joining allowance on my shoulder, I'm going to make it 10.5. Because after joining this 0.5, it will fall to 10. After joining 0.5, it falls to 10. So I have 10 here for my 10.5 for my bust. Then my under bust is 13. I'm going to make it 13.5. Under bust 13, making it 13.5. Then my waist is, to how to get your waist measurement, you plus 2 inches from your under bust. Plus 2 inches, since I have 13.5 here, plus 2 inches will give me 15.5. So 15.5, I'm going to plus 0.5 inch for sewing allowance, making it 16. How to get your waist measurement is plus 2 inches from your under bust plus 2 inches. That is how you are going to get your waist measurement. So here is I have my waist measurement 16. So from my waist measurement, I'm going to measure 9 inches to get my hip. But in this case, the person I'm making for is small, so I'm going to make from my waist to hip 8. So your waist to hip depends on your client which you are working for. Depends on the measurements of your client. So what I have there, 10.5, 13.5, and 16. So I come back here again to put my 10.5, 10.5, 13.5, and 16. Then I come down by 8. Then I connect my accurate lines. Connect my accurate lines like this. So there is one thing I want you to know: when making a dress, you don't need this your under bust measurement. You use your waist as your under bust. When making for dress, you don't use your waist measurement, your under bust measurement. When making a dress, you don't need your waist measurement. You use your waist and your bust measurement. So my shoulder is 14 divided by 2 gives me 7. 14 divided by 2 gives me 7. 7. Then now I want to get my armhole measurement. So my armhole is my bust divided by 6. So my bust is 31. You can go ahead to use your tape to get that calculation. So my bust is 31, which I have like this: 31 divided by 2, that is this. Then this one part of it I divided by 3. 31 divided by 6 gives me 5. 5 plus 2.5 will give me 7.5. So I have my 7.5. From this spot here, I have my 7.5. So after getting your armhole measurement, you are going to place your shoulder measurement again. Place your shoulder measurement here. The same measurement which I have, yes, the same 7. I place the same 7 here, and I'm going to rule my line. So after ruling my armhole, I will come down for my shoulder slope by 1 inch. Shoulder slope, I will come down by 1 inch. And my neck, my neck width, I'm going to use 2.5. This depends on the client which you are working for. If you are working for somebody that is big, because you can see the measurement which you are working with. My bust is 31, so you should know that this person is small. So the neck width which I want to make use of is 2.5, because after joining my neck, it will fall to 3. So 2.5 is the neck width which I'm working for this my client right now. So 2.5 is for my client, the depth of the width of the neck. My client's width, the width of the neck is 2.5. So if you are working for somebody that is bigger, you go for 3 inches. Then you connect it to your neck width. From this point now, we connect it to your neck width. So after that, you're going to divide your bust measurement divided by 4 plus 1.5. So my bust measurement divided by 4 gives me 7.75. So I have my 7.75 here. 7.75 here plus 1.5 inch for sewing allowance. Then my waist, I have my waist divided by 4, I have 6.25. So here is my 6.25 plus 1.5 inch for sewing allowance at my waist. Then my hip, I have my hip here. I have my hip divided by 4 plus 1.5. That is what I have here. So I'm going to use the same measurements at this full length. So what I'm going to do now is to connect from my waist down to my hip. Then from my hip down to my bust. Then from the bust, you take it full here. So at this point, we have 1.5 inch for our sewing allowance. I bring it back to my bust, to my armhole measurement here, and place it like this to show you this is my sewing allowance. So after getting your sewing allowance, you are going to divide your armhole divided by 2. So what I have here is 6.5 divided by 2 will give me 3.2. So I have my 3.2 here, and I'm going to connect it from this 3.2, connect down to this my point. So here is my armhole. So my armhole curves stops at this my bust point here. So here is my armhole, and then here is my shoulder slope. So after getting your measurement like this, I'm going to cut it out. So with this measurement now, I am able to cut out my front piece. So when you want to make a wrap, you can see my front piece. I have not cut out my neck depth yet. So what you are going to do, you need your front piece to cut out three. When you want to cut on your fabric, you need 3 pieces of this. You need 3 pieces of your pattern. So what I'm going to do now, I want to place it on my pattern paper like this to cut out my back. So for my back, I am going to use single piece for my back, and I will make you understand why I want to make single piece for my back. So my back is going to be unfold. When cutting your fabric, your back should be unfold. But for what I want to do here now, I am using it to be one piece. Okay, let me just fold it unfold for you not to get confused. So my back, I am placing my back unfold. This is my back. Let me go with the same measurements which I have. So let me go ahead to arrange my back. So here I have my back, which I have also placed on fold. So you can see I placed my back on fold and my front. So what I'm going to do now is to get my back neckline. I'm going to cut everything equally. I'm going to take the measurement of my back. So I took the measurement of my client for the back, and she wants it to fall at 3 inches. So the depth of my back is going to fall at 3 inches. So this is my 3 inches which I have here for my back. So my 3 inches, I'm going to connect it from my shoulder point here for my back. So take note, this is for my front. This is the front. This is my front, and this is my back, which I have here. So I want to cut out my back using my front to do so. So here is my back. So here is my back. You can see I have cut out my back neckline for my back, and you can see what my back look like. So this is my front, which I'm going to work with. I'm going to keep my back aside. After that, I'm going to keep my back aside, and I'm going to work with my front. So this is my front, which is I have opened just like this. So what I'm going to do for my front, I'm going to take the depth of my neck measurement, the depth of my neck. So my client wants the depth of my neck, of her neck, to be 9. So I'm making use of this 9 inches, which I have like this. So since I have this 9 inches like this, here is the waist point, and at this waist point, this is where the band is going to pass through for the wrap. This is where the band is going to, because you can see the back is closed. The back is closed, so there is nothing like zipper allowance because it is a wrap. So the band is going to pass through this point. So at this your waist point there, it will come up by 1.5, come down by 1.5. This all depends on how you want, you want the width of your wrap to be. And at this point, you can still come in by 1 inch, because this 1 inch here is the sewing allowance, and I'm keeping this 0.5 inch for the folding of my bias. This 0.5 inch for the folding of my bias. So it will come like this. Then I'll come again and place my 1 inch at the top and 1 inch at the bottom, just like this. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to connect from my neck width down to my point which I have I'm going to place my belt. You can still reduce this if you wish. If you don't want it quite, you can still reduce it. I can still reduce mine to 0.7. It all depends on the width you want. So let me say 0.7. Then you connect from this point to your neckline, to your neck depth. Just like if you have French curve, you can go ahead to do it like this. Your French curve. Then from this point, you can connect down to your shoulder. So if you are working with your French curve, you will have something like this. Even if you do not have French curve, you can also go with something like this. So if you want yours to be straight, all you need to do is just to mark 1 inch, just like this, to reconstruct your measurements. You just need to add your 1 inch line to reconstruct your measurements for your, if you don't want any design, you want it straight, you can go ahead to make it like this. But for what I'm making right now, I want it to have that curve of a wrap at the front, for it to have that C curve. I don't want it to be straight, I want it to have a slight curve. So what I'm going to do now, if you are working with your French curve, I will always advise you to use your French curve when doing this. But since I don't have I'm using my free hand to do this, but it is very okay if you go with your French curve. So I'm going to use my free hand to do my connection just like this, to meet up to this point just like this with my free hand. I am not that good at sketching, but at least if you don't have French curve, it is still possible to make like this. So take notes, this is my front which I have here, and I'm going to cut this out. After cutting this out, when cutting on my fabric, I'm going to have 2 pieces of this. So I'm using this 1 piece as an illustration for you to understand. So let me go ahead to cut this out for you. So you can see what I have for my front. We are going to make ×2 of this. ×2 of this. So let me go ahead to cut my fabric, then I'll come back to explain to you on what to do next. To cut out my lining, to cut out my fabric using my patterns. So you can see what I have here. I have 2 pieces for this, and I have 1 piece unfold for my back. So let me take off my pin on my back. So here I have my back piece, and here I have my front piece, 2 pieces, and the front piece is unfold. The front piece is unfold, right side facing right side. So you can see what I have here. And there's another thing I want to show you guys. So there's another thing. If you still want yours to have that other shape, from your hip here you can reduce 1.5 inch. From your hip here you can reduce 1.5 inch like this. You can reduce 1.5 inch to get your curve. From your hip here, you can reduce 1.5 inch to get your curve. If you want it to pence, so if you want yours to have that shape of it to be tight at the down part, you can go on to reduce 1.5 inch at this side and cut it off. But for what I'm making now, I want to make use of the straight point. I just want to let you know on this. So this aside, so I have my front and my back piece. So this is my front that has 2 pieces of this. So it is going to sit like this as a wrap. It is going to serve like this. So you can see what I have here. This will go in. We go like this. This is what I have for my wrap. So what I'm going to do now is to place my back on my front like this, right side facing right side. and I am going to sew 0.5 inch at my shoulder. I am going to close it by 0.5 inch at my shoulder, and I'm going to sew my 1.5 inch for both sides. 1.5 inch, I'm going to sew it down. Let me go ahead to do those areas, then come back to show you what I have. I have gone ahead to join my shoulder and the side, so you can see what I have here. I have gone ahead to join my shoulder and the side, and this other side, which is the left hand side, is going to fall inside, which means this left hand side is going to be inside my wrap, just like this. So I want to use it to get my hole, or I want to put a space where my belt will pass through inside. So I'm going to fold it out, and I'm going to use this to indicate the point which the hole is going to pass through. I'm going to use this as an indication to indicate where it is going to pass through. So it is going to pass through here. I'm going to make my point from this mark here. I'm going to make it 1.5. It's as small as the amount I want my belt to be. So from this point to this point, I'm making it 1.5. So I'm going to use my bias strap now to fold around my overlap. So after that, then at this point which I have here, I'm going to put a mark at this point, just like this. I'm going to put my mark here, open it up like this, and put my mark here, and come down by the same 1.5 which I have, just like this. So at this note, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to run my stitch. I'm going to stitch here like 2 to 3 times, and come down like this, come again, stitch here 2 to 3 times, then come again and close it up. So here will be sealed. So if I seal there now, I'm going to open this so that it will not be able to loose through. That is the essence of this stitching here and stitching here in both sides. I'm going to tear this open. I'm going to rip it off so that here will be open for my belt to sit. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put my bias around it. Then I'm going to put what I just showed you here. I'm going to do the same thing. Then I'm going to fold my belt band, and the width of it is going to be 1.5. You can decide to increase it if you wish. You can decide to make any kind of belt shape of your choice as you wish. So I just want mine to be straight, so I'm going to do all of that, and I'm going to coming back to show you what I have after fixing everything. So let me go on to do that. My belt band which I have here, so the width of this, when it is unfolded, the width is 2 inches. The width is 2 inches, and the length is 22, which I have here. So in total of this, I have 4 inches. After sewing 2 inches, after taking away half, it will come back to 1.5, and the length is 32 inches. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to sew here close and run it down. I'm going to do the same for this. Then I'm going to attach it to my side for my wrap. So let me go ahead to do that, because I want to rush this video, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Let me go ahead to do that and come back to show you what I got. Okay, so I have gone ahead to sew my belt. So what I'm going to do next is to press it with iron. Make sure it is smooth and nice. So you can see I've done the same thing for the other part of my belt. So you can see how the wrap dress is looking very nice and beautiful. So this is where my belt is going to pass through from this other part. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to close this inside. Before I do that, I'm going to push this in. I'm going to push this in and sew it closed. Then I'm going to put it just like this. Don't bend it, just put it straight so it goes like this. Then I'm going to stitch here, stitch it like this down, and stitch this one at this other part. I'm also going to stitch this one at this under part. Make sure this your line which you sew is facing downward. So it is going to be like this. This is the side which I sew is facing down. So I'm going ahead to stitch this and stitch the other part. So let me go ahead to iron it, stitch it, and come back to show you the finished result. And for your sleeve, You can go ahead to put any sleeve design of your choice, any sleeve design at all will go for this, and it will look nice and beautiful. Any design which you prefer to use, so go ahead to do that. So let me go ahead to do what I just showed you, to put my band, and I'm going to put it on the mannequin to show you how it looks like sleeveless, or I am going to put the sleeve, then I will show you the finished result of everything. So let me do that, and I want to say thank you for staying tuned till this time. Just wait, let me show you the finished work first before I start saying anything. As I told you, I am almost done with the dress, so I want to show you how I have decided to show you how to make the sleeve. So that's what I want to do here, and I will need my armhole measurement for this. And how to get your armhole measurement? It's your bust divided by 6 plus 1.5. That is your armhole measurement. My round armhole is 6.5. 6.5, which is, it is divided by 2. My round armhole is 13, divided by 2 is 6.5. So that is what I have. So for the width of my sleeve, I want to make the width of my sleeve about 10 to 11 inches. I want to make it about 10. This totally depends on how full you want it to be at this edge here. So I'm going to make use of 11 or 10.5, because 0.5 was showing allowance, in total 10. So that's what I want to make use of. So it all depends on how full you want it to be. So I'm adjusting my organza, because organza is the fabric which I am using, organza fabric to form my sleeve. So okay, let me go with 10 inches because I don't want it to be that full. So this my sleeve length is 21. I'm going to include 4 inches so that it will give it that little gather at the down part to form the ball. If you make it exactly 21 like mine, if I make it exactly 21, it will not form or sit at where it's supposed to sit. It will go up a bit. So I want to make it 21 and add extra 4 inches so that those other extra excess will be the one to form the ball at the down part. Hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So 21 plus 4 will give me 25. This is plus my sewing allowance included. 25. So 25, that is what I have here. I have 25 at the top, just like this. I have 25 here. So my armhole 6.5. So this is my armhole here, 6.5. 6.5. Then to get my cap height, I will come down by 3.5 because this person is not big. If you are making for big person, you come down by 4. Because the person I'm making for is not big. I'm coming down by 3.5 to get my cap height. Then connect it just like this. Connect it to your curve. I have a video on how to get your sleeve, so that video will explain it better for you to understand. So all I'm going to do now is to roll my line down to this end, just like this. Very easy to make this sleeve. Very, very easy to make this sleeve. So I have a video on how to cut your sleeve. That will explain it better for you to understand. Okay, so this is my sleeve which I have here. So what I'm going to do is just to fold my down. This is my 2 sleeves which I cut together. What I'm going to do now is to fold my down and put my elastic. That is it. That is it. That is all for the sleeve. And for our dress, I'm almost done. For our dress, I want to put an organza at this down part. So I am going to cut either, you can use either full flame, you use either full circle, which is 360 degree, to cut your flounce at the down part, or you can go with the half flame, which you can form a triangle shape for your half flame. You can either use that or use your full circle flame, which is 360 degree. So I'm going to fold mine to the half flame. My half flame, which is 180. So that is what I'm going to fold. So let me go ahead to fold my fabric, and before I do that, I'm going to get my measurement of this part. I'm going to get my measurement of this part, because this is where I want to put my flounce. This is where I want my flounce to be. This is my front. Let me turn it where you will see it better. So this is my front, and this is the wrap, the down part. So what I'm going to do is to take my measurement. It is on fold. Take note. Take my measurement from this end down to this end. So that is what I'm going to cut in total of my flounce, which I want to create. It is either I make it 2 for it to come out the same shape for the flounce, for it to be able to get to this end, or I cut it 1. It all depends on the fabric you are working with. If your fabric is enough, you can cut it 1. If not enough, you can cut it 2. You can also cut a 360 degree flame. So let me choose one which I want to use. Then I'll come back to show you on how to go about that. Okay, so I have gone ahead to mark out my flame. I want to make it 360 degree flame. So what I have here, my fabric is unfold. What I have is unfold into 4 places to get my full circle. So it is unfold into 2 places to get my full circle. So this side, there is no opening here, and there is no opening here. These are the sides that are open for my full circle. So what I have here divided by 4 will give me 70 for what I have at this part here. Here I told you I have 35 when I took my measurement from this end, from this point to this end here, to the back here, I have 35. So 35, because it is unfold, 35 plus 35 makes it 70. So what I have here now divided by 4 gives me 70. What I have here is equal. So I have here 10.5. All through this point I have 10.5. Then I have 6 inches for my flounce, and that 6 inches, 1 inch is from my sewing allowance, making it to be 5. 5 inches is for my flounce, 1 inch for sewing allowance, making it 6. So that is what I have all through this part here, 6 inches. So what I'm going to do now is to cut it out. To get my flounce, I'm going to cut it out. So here I have my full flame. So you can see what I have here now. So I want to make this part my front. So I want to make this part my front, and I don't want my front to be wide as the back. So from where my flounce is going to start from, I want to give it a curve. So you can go ahead to give yours a curve like this. And you can still use crinoline if you wish. It will give it a form of flame. So it will make your flame to come out very well. And you can still go ahead to use 2 of your flounce. You can make it 2. You can still go ahead to interlock it, but just make sure your edges are not rough. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to use bias to do my edge. This is my edge. I'm going to use bias for it, but you can go ahead to use interlock. For me, that interlocking is the best way to do it so far. So you can go ahead to do it with interlocking, but for me, I'm going to use sewing bias to run my edge. You can also use bias if you like the outcome of mine. You can also use bias. So this one here now is going to sit at this part. So you can see it is now in 2 places. So it is going to be unfold just the way this main body is unfold as well. So it is going to stick like this to this end at this back here. So this is how it's going to be. So let me go ahead to use my bias to turn it, then I'll come back to show you on what to do next. So I have gone ahead to put my bias on my flounce or my flay, which you can see, which I'm going to use at this lower part. So what I'm going to do now is to notch the midpoint of this my flay or flounce, as you know it. This is a flounce, not a flay again. So this, how to get a flounce, just to get my midpoint. You can see the two edges which I have there, which I shaped. I've placed my bias on them just like that, so you can see on it rather. Put my bias on it. So I locate my midpoint and I give it a notch. And the midpoint of my main dress, I'm going to use chalk to give it a mark, not a notch. Please don't notch it. So I'm going to use chalk to give it a mark at this point, because here is the midpoint. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pin my flounce down. And what you are going to do is to place your flounce like this. Make sure this does not come out. Make sure it is inside. You're going to place it like this. And you are going to pin it down with your pins. Make sure it is inside like this. Because what I'm going to do is to run on this stitch which I use to fold this other bias. This is the stitch which I'm going to follow suit to run all the way down. So I'm going to fold it like this and pin. Make sure you are pinning in a way where your sewing is going to meet up, catch up this one at this other part. So I'm going to pin it down, then I'm going to show you on how yours should also look like. So let me go ahead to do that, then come back to you. Okay, so now I have pinned it down, so you can see what I have. I pinned it from the wrong side. So I pinned it from the wrong side, from this end down to this other end. So you can see how it looks at this part. As I told you, make sure your stitch is following this your main line. You can go ahead to sew it from here if you please, and you can still go ahead to sew it from the wrong side. So what I'm going to do for mine, I'm going to sew it from the wrong side. But make sure you are sewing on this stitch here. I can see my stitch through this part. And when you pin down, make sure there is a little allowance so that when you sew from the outside, be able to catch up this other, your organza that is inside. Make sure you, when pinning, you exceed your sewing point by 0.2 inches. So that is the space which I have from there to there. So I have about 0.2 inches. You can see both at this other part, I have excess is 0.2 inches from this line which I'm going to stitch from. So I will stitch from this other end to the other end, then I'll come back to show you how it looks. So I will also go ahead to fix my sleeve. So you can see the sleeve which I have. As I told you earlier, if you don't want yours to be small, you can still make it big so that your ball become much bigger than this. But this is what I want for my own sleeve, so I'm going with this one. So I will go ahead to sew it down as I just explained to you, and I will fix my sleeve, and I'm going to show you the finished result of it.